assembled here to understand the grassroots to global journey for our esports and the opportunities that we have in India. To present and moderate the session, we have Zerah Gonsalves here, who is a CEO at LXG. I would request her to join us on the stage. And I also request Zerah to introduce herself and the panelists, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much today, of course, to take out the time to come here. It's going to be quite an exciting panel, if you ask me, because the topic is such. Grassroots to global is something that we have tried to see India reach for a lot of years now. And finally, we've reached this day where we're going to have this topic spoken about, understood better, and also come to conclusions as to where this would lead over the years to follow. My name is Zerah. I have been a gamer for the last 15 years. I have been working in the industry for the last 10 years. And surprisingly, the first time the India Gaming Show happened in 2017, I came here as a caster. And just like you hear all this noise around you right now, I was among that crowd sitting there casting a few games. It was about, I think, 10 games that I casted that day. So from 2017 to now, I've seen India Gaming Show grow miles and leaps. I have seen these venues really become bigger and bigger, more tech-centric. You see some really huge brands that have come in. And that makes me remember the fact that the vision we saw as a country in 2017 has really changed the game now in 2023. My company, LXG, League of Extraordinary Gamers, works very closely with grassroots level gamers. Our focus has always been players who are casual, players who are entering the market, and how do we cater to them? How do we serve them? And today, the interesting thing is my whole panel that is joining me is extraordinary. They are visionaries. They have accomplished goals and milestones that I will talk about through this whole 1 hour. And overall, they're also people who work in different parts of the ecosystem and are building it in their vision. So before we move further, let me introduce my panel. I'm going to start off by calling in Shivanandi on the stage, Piyush Kumar, Rohit Jagasia, Firasat Durrani, and Vaibhav Dange. So as you know, ladies and gentlemen, the noise you see on the side from Sky Esports, we do have their CEO and co-founder sitting right here with us. Shivanandi, very, very well known in the Indian ecosystem. Piyush Kumar, of course, he's the founder of Crowd Control. They are doing some great work as of now in the Indian ecosystem at a grassroots level. Rohit Jagasia is the founder of Revenant Esports, one of the teams in the country that I've known the longest. Even I've seen them through the times of 2016, 2017. Their team has always stood strong. Firasat Durrani, of course, this name is very well known in the live streaming segment. He's the co-founder of Loco. And Vaibhav Dange, of course, founding member of Federation Esports. So that's going to be my panel for today. I'm first going to take a few moments to let each of the gentlemen kind of introduce themselves one after the other, to give you a brief about themselves and what they represent with their company. Piyush, would you like to start first?
I am Piyush, the founder of Crowd Control Esports. My journey with esports dates back to about 1997. That's when I was 8, and my first interaction with esports happened with a title called Quake 3 Arena and Unreal Tournament. From there on, it was love at first sight for me. Across almost 20 years, I've picked up different elements of skill, of learning through esports. And I've definitely been, a very intrinsic part of the community. So when I started Crowd Control Esports in 2020, after leaving Microsoft, my vision was to build India's esports ecosystem to provide opportunities for the communities that I missed out on, because maybe I was early for my time. Having said that, what we've done extensively is we've done tournaments across genres. So while most of India has been focused on battle royale as a genre, crowd control esports has done tournaments and events across genres, and we've curated different sets of IPs for different titles. We've curated elements of skilling and learning through esports, having done a pilot for specially abled children, where we were able to successfully impart cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skills to them. And of course, that set of skilling and education is not just for the specially able; it is for learners across age groups, across not just schools or institutions, but also corporates, also places where technology adoption is required, where you want to take a gamified approach to teaching and skilling. So that's all. I would really look forward to having an exciting panel here with the rest of my panelists. Over to you, Firasat.
Thank you, Piyush. So yeah, my name is Firasat. I represent Loco. Loco is the world's largest independent live streaming platform. We have been serving the esports and gaming community in India for the last 3 years. Some of the largest events in esports and gaming have happened on Loco with the help of our various partners, some of whom are also on this panel right now. I'm looking forward to an exciting panel discussion with everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vaibhav Dange. I represent the Federation of Esports Association of India here. We have been working from last few years, particularly focusing the players in the whole ecosystem. So Federation primarily represents the players and the various aspects of uh, uh, players' well-being in terms of their exposure, their training, their larger skill training, and post well-being. So we have been doing a lot of grassroots level tournaments from last year or so, and some of our partners are here. They have been partnering with us and organizing a lot of these grassroots tournaments, primarily into the universities, colleges, and with a very good response. We are also working on creating the players database, players registration, and the whole ecosystem. We are working closely with the government on the policy aspect of the whole esports ecosystem. So look forward for a very uh, you know good conversation and maybe a good learning experience for us as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rohit Jagasha. I've founded Revenant Esports. We've been one of the youngest esports teams to actually, field around 8 rosters currently in India. We've been competing in titles like Valorant, Free Fire, BGMI, Brawl Stars, just to name a few. We've also been, we've been partnering up with brands like Puma, AMD, Cybart, and just to mention a couple of brands. Apart from that, we've been we've been a mobile first esports organization, and currently we've been getting into the whole PC ecosystem. With obviously being a mobile first esports organization, our we want to focus on the Indian region, but we also have global aspirations. Uh, Again, we are looking forward to having like a good discussion.
I'm Shiva. I'm the founder and CEO of Sky Sports. So I'd like to give some background about me, because few know about me, few does not know. So I started my career as a game producer and game developer in game development studios, and then I started my own game development studios in Chennai, and we developed several hyper casual games and lot of games. And then we in 2018 we ventured into esports, and that time it was so potential, and we want to build esports ecosystem in India, particularly in south side. So that time in 2018, the esports was predominantly dominant in the central side, so we want to focus on the south. So we in 2018 we focused the state level tournaments. We associated with the IIT, Christ University colleges, and partnered with the state governments and executed tournaments in Tamil Nadu. We did qualifiers in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala. So the 2 years we focused on the grassroots level, And the time the COVID pandemic situation, we don't have any option, so we get into the central level. We started to focus on national level esports tournament, and the blueprint, the framework, what we executed in South India, it's worked very well in India because there is a huge gap, and there are biggest TOs are in the industry that time, but there is some gap. So we just came and filled that gap, and we got great response. And then we got investment from Jets in this, and then in 2020 and 2021 we did several tournaments and we built our own IPs. That's a primary thing, the primary USP of Sky Sports. The white label and services are part of thing, but we always used to build our own IPs because that's make more sense for me personally. And then like we did associated with Riot Games, Craft, and the Pokemon company. A lot of publishers we officially associated and executed several first party tournaments and grassroots level tournaments, and everything goes good so far. And then recently we expand to Southeast Asia, and we did a female only esports tournament for MLBB in Southeast Asia, and we got great response. Everything going good so far. Let's see.
Thank you so much to my whole panel. That was a wonderful introduction by all of them. Of course, the whole panel will be up for a special Q&A at the end of this. So if you do have specific questions that you would like to ask them, please wait by the end of the session. So getting into our subject, right? What is our subject for the day? It's grassroots to global. What do we mean by that, honestly? Uh, in the recent years, we've seen that the Indian ecosystem has really boomed. And I mean by that when you look at the grassroots level gaming, we talk about players who are not just from tier one cities of our country, but smaller cities, towns, villages, every part of India is now playing video games. And majorly because mobile usage has increased to such a high capacity. Now, keeping that in mind, today our discussion is going to revolve around the different strategies that we could use to capture this market. What are the skill gaps do we see in this market? How do we fix the problems that we see in this market? The other thing we got to talk about very specifically is we're going to deliberate on what is the role of various players in the ecosystem, from the esport organizers to team owners and of course game publishers. How are they going to capitalize on a market that's so huge? We're going to close this discussion today, of course, with the thoughts on how specific activities that are taking place right now are tipping that iceberg at grassroots potential. So these are the 4-5 topics we are going to be talking about. I want to start off with Shivan Nandi, CEO, co-founder, Sky Esports. What do you think are the skills required to work in the esports industry in regards to esports tournament organizing?
Everyone wants to get into esports to execute esports event. That knowledge in gaming is very much important. Even you are doing your degree or school or whatever it is, not doesn't matter. You need to have a deep knowledge in the gaming. That's how it works. So it's not like we can hire random people to broadcast or casters. Or it won't work. So because gaming is something different from cricket or football or any broadcasting, so you need a great knowledge, and also like you need the entire 360-degree has to work in any esports event we want to execute, right from the PR, marketing, production, execution, even everything has to be materialized properly. For that, you need a proper esport gaming knowledge, right? So that's very important.
As per you, where do you see the gaps as of now in the market when you are hosting events? Is that you don't have enough volunteers, the right tech team to back? Do you think at a grassroots level that could be fixed as a problem?
See, gap. There is a lot of gap in esports right now, particularly for particularly for grassroots. Right now, esports is predominantly look like a elite, only for elite. The guys who having the proper PC, big PCs built and the high-end mobile device. So they are only used to play the esports, so participating in the esports. But it should not like that. Like we need to bridge the gap between the grassroots. So we need to go into the amateur level tournaments and mid-core. How it will happen? We have to build the state-wise. First, we need to start from the district-wise, state-wise, and then zonal wise, then has to start from the college. So for that, esports has to be has to esports for all actually.
True. And Piyush, would you agree to what Shiva is saying? The fact that you do a lot of events yourself, both digitally and physically. Have you seen this gap in the market? And since you work with a lot of young gamers yourself, how do you see these gaps filling?
So yes, short answer is definitely there are many obvious gaps in the ecosystem. When we talk about professionals, I think there is a lack of professionals dedicated to the esports space when it comes to broadcast, when it comes to design, when it comes to even athleticism, right? Playing is one aspect of it, winning tournaments is one aspect of it, but behaving as professionals, as athletes, and the right set of grooming, the right set of support staff is just as critical for esports to survive as a sports. And it is the next generation of sports.
And I would go back to Shiva again on just to understand, like, since your company is one of the top companies in the country, what are you doing as a company in this time to fix these gaps?
Again, like we are connecting the brands and the players, publishers between the players, brands versus esports tournaments. Not so right now only endemic brands are working, supporting the esports tournaments. We need to build, we need to bring non-endemic brands. So we are working it slowly grow, and like we are working with FEI. We did a real cricket tournament, and we did 25 states. We did a qualifier in association with the FEI. We got great response. So there we are connecting the bridge between the families and the gamers, and then everything is going on.
I see. Next, I would like to come to you, Firasat. With regard to esports, could you give us a growth in viewership in the last few years?
Well, it's been tremendous, and frankly, that's what we base the success of Loco on. Unlike traditional content platforms, we didn't sort of try to base our entire growth on content categories that already existed. We sort of we believed we had tremendous belief in the future of the numbers and as far as esports content viewership is concerned, and that's how we latched on very early to the ecosystem. um, Loco's entire growth depends on the trajectory that esports content has seen in the last few years. I remember looking back at 2019 when the only tournaments in the region or in the entire South Asian region were a couple of official tournaments. But up until a few months ago, you could wake up at 8 a.m. and there'd be a tournament on Loco. You'd want to have lunch at 12 p.m. and there'd be a tournament on Loco. Irrespective of the time and the place, from having zero tournaments available in this region for a particular game to seeing tournament organizers come across from all over the country in order to create content on your platform, outside of just merely viewing the numbers. I know a lot of us have seen high-flying numbers, like it's a billion-dollar industry. There are 500 to 600 million gamers here. This is the world's largest consumer of games in the world as a country, etc., etc. But some of these things are visible in minute details. For example, even on this panel discussion, Shiva represents not just a growing set of tournament organizers in this country, but also represents the kind of regional importance this content has gotten. I believe Shiva did one of the earliest Tamil streams, and from there other people got the idea of doing Malayalam streams, Bengali streams, and I've just been surprised at the kind of niche growth these categories have seen. So outside of just looking at the numbers, these kind of reports throw at you generally, on an esports content broadcast platform like ours, it's usually visible in the growth of tiny and small pockets that are regionally based or language based or things that are like completely springing out from communities that were not known before. And I've always been extremely inspired by seeing these growth curves come out, seeing new communities gang up and start supporting their favorite esport teams. I've seen communities come up and raise money for charity. I mean, back in COVID, who would have thought that was possible, right? I mean, we used to have cricket players do that. We used to have Bollywood celebrities come out and raise money. Right now, there are efforts to do the same for even far off countries like Turkey, which have unfortunately been hit with a unfortunate earthquake very recently. So I've witnessed tremendous growth, and in a nutshell, that's what Loco uh, attributes its success to. But I've always directed people to look at these niches that have come up rather than just the creamy numbers at the top, because the niches are actually very interesting, and they have been, to be honest, really interesting.
Absolutely. We do see a lot of variety of content also that comes out from region to region. And just a quick follow up on that question. I was quite intrigued to understand what is the percentage of growth that you can attribute when you talk about the grassroots level?
Well, for grassroots level,
Yeah.
see, there's that's where it all falls through.
Yeah.
I believe esports content in India is new, absolutely. So it is by the grassroots, but not for the grassroots.
Got it.
That's I think the main problem that we have in our industry right now. Esports is by grassroots. What I mean by when I say that, there are no big banner production houses producing esports content. There is not, like, Yashraj Films doesn't have like an esports Dharma doesn't have any, like, none of the big studios that produce content for TV or for any mainstream media have an esports wing in them. A few have created some efforts in this regard, but right now some of the best esports content in India is created by people who have originally been in the community from many years and are still connected to the grassroots and here have their ear to the ground. I mean, I can literally remember, like, Rohit is like, he called himself a new team as well, because frankly, there is no history to any of us. 3 years down the line, we didn't even exist, all of us. So we're all grassroots in a way. So esports in India by that way is by the grassroots, but it is not for the grassroots. What I mean by that is we do not create content for the lowest common denominator. We want to create content for the biggest esport fans still. There is still an alignment to create a game for the most hardcore players versus the less hardcore gaming consumers. There is still an alignment to create content for the biggest fans rather than the mainstream audiences of India who would have enjoyed some mainstream filling of content on this. Now, it all sounds like I'm making a lot of complaints, but like last year we tried fixing this. We took some of our content to television as well, but unfortunately TV didn't. TV had way less numbers than what we did digitally on our platform. So it still looks like the grassroots not actually really ready for it yet. And I think that's where the policymakers will have to come in to sort of help us get into the grassroots so that esports can be by the grassroots and for the grassroots, which is not right now.
Yeah. For now, we are just sticking to by the gamers, for the gamers. That's what I got from the whole thing, which is really nice. Piyush, moving on to you. Now, as a fact that the mobile gaming has moved into towns, cities, villages. You have taken initiatives of your own. And I want to understand, what are the strategies required on a grassroots level to grow the gaming ecosystem?
Thank you so much once again, Zerah. So I think we have to have a multifold approach to tackling the challenge of developing the esports at a grassroots level in India, for the reason that, one, we have the second largest population of gamers globally. After China, it's just us. To tackle a beast of this size, it has to be a structured approach where there is a conversation around awareness, there are conversations around skill building, there are conversations around regulation, There are conversations around creating national level programs for qualifications for selection of athletes from the esports industry, from the grassroots, nurturing them to create global title winning teams. In fact, that's our vision and mission at Crowd Control Esports, to build global title winning teams by creating esports at the grassroots and building on up from there. In terms of specific programs we should look at creating, just like we have for sports, right? We have national selection camps, we have tournaments, and it all has to start at the basic level, at the school level. Popular in India when it was introduced into the educational curriculum, whether as a vocational course, but it was introduced. There was that recognition, there was that acceptance. Prior to that, everyone said that padhoge, likhoge, banoge nawab, kheloge, kudoge, banoge kharab. So that mentality changed. Today, in the last couple of years, there's a very interesting example all over the internet where in August of 2019, the World Health Organization said esports is a disorder. And 6 months later, the same writer, same publication said, the WHO recommends playing esport as it's a very good social pastime. Now, you see that approach changing in just a span of 6 months. And that's what it is about. Because people don't know, because people don't understand, they will criticize. They will say if you play a shooting game, it makes you violent. No, it does not. Does giving your child a pichkari on Holi make them violent? No, it does not. It's just about understanding it, accepting it, and understanding the skills that esports imparts. For example, we have created a proprietary curriculum called the Skill Cap curriculum, which focuses on cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skilling. This is not just for players or athletes, it's for learners of all ages, across age groups, across not just students, but we're speaking to banking institutions, we're speaking to corporates, we're trying to create skilling programs for them as well. And that is how we will take esports from grassroots to global.
That makes a lot of sense, Piyush. Moving on, of course, I want to talk to Rohit now. Uh, you have the experience of working with esports athletes globally, is what I would say. You have worked with them, you understood them, and you've also seen the pros and cons of being an esport athlete, how it affects their lives, how it affects you as a team owner. I want to understand from you if you could share some strategies that help facilitate the growth of the Indian ecosystem at a grassroots level.
So globally, I don't really have too much experience. So we've had athletes from Southeast Asia, basically Indonesia and Philippines, and most of them are from India. We worked with a couple of athletes in the Call of Duty space from Australia as well. I think the work ethic between Southeast Asian players and Indian players is currently, there's a big difference. I mean, at least from the experience that I've had with my teams, I think Indian players here are more driven by the salary and the brand deals and the deliverables that they get from an organization. However, with Southeast Asians, that's the reason why we actually introduced two of the top Southeast Asian talent in our Valorant team, and they are more result oriented. So that is one major difference that I see when it comes to Indian talent and Southeast Asian talent. Apart from just that, we had an Indonesian team that played Apex Legends for us. They were with us for around 3 months, and their work ethic was so great. They used to practice, and they used to do their scrims, WOD reviews for 16 hours a day. And 3 months of being under our banner, they actually made it to the ALGS at Stockholm. So I mean, the main thing that I see in athletes, in India, there is work ethic that is really, really something that I think all organizations should work together. Apart from just that, I think there is a lot of the churn of retaining athletes is very hard. Honestly, in the esports scene currently, we've never really had an athlete leave us until we wanted them to leave us. But for other teams, we've seen that players just leave one team and just hop to another team without actually having like a proper transfer window or some sort of respect to the contract that they signed with the and that's where I think the policy makers will come into play and help organizations because I mean then it just doesn't make sense for teams to invest from the grassroots, because then you're starting to invest for a team from the grassroots, and then eventually when they actually reach at a decent level, there's another organization that comes and actually picks the team up. So I think apart from just all of that, we are also looking at working on a couple of IPs to help grow the entire grassroots talent, to come and probably get like a professional contract from Revenue. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I heard you mention policies, and I would like to move to Vibe next regarding that. Being a part of a federation, gaming is so new. I want to first understand from you, how do you see esports as an opportunity?
Thank you. I think all our panelists will agree. The requisite probably infrastructure for the esports is growing like a wildfire. So I think it's all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. It's the onus is on us to ensure that we take esports to next level at whichever fastest possible pace we can. And I think, for example, we have more than 100 billion smartphones available today. 5G is reaching to most of the cities. In the smallest, probably villages and tehsil places, we have internet connection available. So I think the infrastructure is ready. And as somebody said that, how do we take it to the grassroots? And probably going to grassroots addresses the lot of other problems which some of my panelists has mentioned. For example, unless we have a huge, we increase the pool base of the players, for example. And when we did some experiment in last 1 year on the university gaming, competitions at university and college level, the response has been phenomenal, both in terms of reach and the viewership and the interest shown by the players. So I think that is something which is required. And as somebody has mentioned, whether it is about ensuring that how do we retain players, how do we respect contracts, how do we ensure that our entire ecosystems work in a sync with each other and not are arguing or in contrary to each other. I think of course, organizations like us will play a role in ensuring or convincing government to come up with the right policy framework. And probably we have been, I would not say 100% successful, but we have crossed few, miles in that direction. And government has announced the definition of sports, esports, fantasy gaming. Government has taken over a drafting of regulations for everybody. More than the regulations, the ecosystem for everybody. Role of SORs, SROs and everything is being defined. I think one more aspect which all of our stakeholders will have to play is to how do we ensure that there is a lot of positivity about esports. Yeah. All of us will agree that there is a lot of apprehension about esports among the parents which are not actually playing the games. But they are a very important influencers on esports and particularly on the players. So how do we, look at that and ensure that there is always a positivity? Because what happened in few of the states, for example, the entire online gaming was banned just because few games or few, in the ecosystem were not really in tune with what society or the government intended them to do. So I think then onus lies more on all of us to ensure that the positivity of esports and the advantage. For example, we suggested government that we are working with international global to learn from the global experiences and develop some skill module for the players, for example. And how do we ensure that ideally esports player, most of you will agree with me, by the time they reach their 27, 28, they are almost on the flag end of their playing career. Whereas in normal circumstances, your career starts at 25, 24, 30, 26. So how do we ensure that their career as a player going down, how do we create an ecosystem where they have enough opportunities available? So then the whole negativity about esports can be addressed looking at it. For example, one suggestions we gave that can we train our players post probably their once they reach their peak on handling lot of for example drone operations, because it is which is probably the extension of what they do on the esports, and there is a huge amount of applications happening on drone area, whether it is deliveries, whether it is monitoring, whether it is agriculture, security, whatnot, or for that matter robotics. So all those aspects need to be looked at, and as I said, as a federation, we are trying to look at from the player's perspective. So probably all of us are playing one role or the other in the ecosystem. For example, they are ensuring that it reaches to the larger audience. Somebody is ensuring that they create teams which play competitively at local and global level. Somebody is creating games, somebody is creating tournaments. So I think everybody has a role to play, and the only challenge is we should be sync in our direction and our vision. So if we look in same direction with a common purpose and objective, and that purpose has to be a bit larger and longer purpose, not only about I doing well or my team doing well or my section doing well, but larger ecosystem of the esports works for us, whether it is players, whether it is gamers, whether it is game developers, whether it is platforms like theirs, whether it is team owners, tournament organizers, and I think everybody has an important role to play. It's like a huge machinery. Even a small part of the machine not working will not give you desired output. So probably everybody has to work together in sync in a larger objective of ensuring that the esports, which is anyway going to take catch the minds of our young population. So if we work together in a right objective, then probably that could be advantage for us than the disadvantage.
Absolutely. That is, so it totally means a complete 360 vision. And it's nice to know that that is your thought on this. It's really inspiring, honestly, because we're always hoping as people in the esports industry that we just pray, that the government kind of backs us, gives us the right uh, kind of model to kind of work with when we look into the future aspects. Because when you speak about games being banned, it kind of shakes everybody. It's not just the game publisher, the team owners the players get shaken, organizers get shaken, and that needs to really change. I feel that's like a really huge problem. Moving on, of course, I would like to go back to Shiva with the question that as of now, when you look at the Indian ecosystem, apart from esport company efforts alone, what do you think is required for India to go onto the world map?
Apart from esports,
No, apart from esport companies, who else do you think is required to join this ecosystem to take India to a world map?
see, apart from we have to build the relationship with the governments, and then federation to the related to the governments, and we need to associate with the esports athletes and the pioneers of the thing. So everything has to cumulative work. Uh, that's how we can bring that.
All right. First, Rohit, I want to ask you this out of curiosity. For the players who come from grassroots level, right? You see them grow, they become really good at the game. If they get chance, they get lucky, you will pick them up in your team. But say this player has come out of nowhere and he's not backed by anybody, right? How does he get into the eyes of someone like you who kind of, may pick him up? And if he does not get picked up, what are the tips or tricks you can share with us to achieve and maintain the global standards for this grassroots level player who's coming maybe from a much smaller city from India?
So initially, when we started off Revenant, I think we've been the only team to actually not start with PUBG back in the day. We started our brand on Call of Duty Mobile, and that's where we actually, picked players who were very good individually, and very, very solid individually, and they actually went on to represent India in the World Championship. But after that we did start working. We did start working with other athletes, and then we stopped going down the grassroots level. I mean, it just from a team point of view, it was easier for us to invest in rosters who are already playing together. Maybe even though if they were like underdogs, what they call them in the esports scheme of things, when they just started off, but they already have like a sync, and they already have their call outs and everything already sorted. So we generally pick up teams who have been playing together, and then we keep building on the team. But we've changed at Revenant. We've changed our approach of picking up individual talent from the grassroots ecosystem. But since we started the company like that, we are working on a couple of other IPs, and building a scouting team where we can actually start hosting academy lineups and everything. But for now, I mean, at the moment, since we are funded also right now, we just like to pick up a team altogether rather than working on grassroots talent.
Perfect. Firasat, I would like to come to you with one of the final questions. I would also like the whole panel to answer this one after the other. We've discussed so many strategies today. We've understood what are the possibilities we can do from all the different stakeholders in the ecosystem. My final question to all of you is, knowing the strategies that we have all discussed, what do you think India needs to be on the global market? Do you think we have got everything correctly? Say in 2025, we could see India compete equivalent with China when we talk about gaming, when we talk about esports, when we talk about the backing, the support that's required?
It's a good thing that you asked this question with China uh, for many reasons. Because to be honest, for Indian esports to get to the world, I think two things are really very well required. One is very simple and very boring, which is that we show our support to the current players in this ecosystem. I mean, you ask this question to a panel where half of the panels already taken Indian esports to the world.
Yeah.
Rohit has foreign teams, right? In Europe, in Southeast Asia. Shiva has done tournaments in Southeast Asia, is produced content. So Piyush has created a learning program for. He had that thing where he used to say, I can teach anything via esports to children, and he has created learning programs for specially abled children, etc., etc. That is already something I've never ever seen or heard of anywhere in the world. So if you think about it, half of this panel, or more than half of this panel, has already kind of taken Indian esports to the world. I think the real answer is in the second part of my answer, which I was, when I said there are two reasons. The first one's quite boring, which is support everyone on this panel. And the second thing is, I think now it's time for the government to step in and try and give esports a major stability and growth on its own first, so that we can flex and take esports to the world. I think until that happens, all of our dreams and hopes and propositions for taking esports to the global stage will always be sort of hollowed out. And I think if I see the government really working on in this direction, despite the Asian Games being in the COVID times, I think we had made efforts to create our own rosters for those games. Despite those games being suspended or banned in these regions, the government had shown some support to send our own players so that they can compete at a global level. I think outside of this, the government has taken a couple of steps in the beginning of this year to start the conversation on regulation, etc., etc. And I see a lot of positivity coming. But long story short, in order to ensure that Indian esports gets to the global stage, I think we have motivated people enough already who are capable of doing that. And the reason for that is very, very simple. None of us invented esports. We learned how esports is done looking at other countries. And then we only figured that we'll do it better if we create content for ourselves on our own, if we create games on our own. And that's what we are on the basis and on the verge of doing. Even in game development, last year, I think, last year or the year before that, Raji went global and did very well. It was from an Indian game studio in Bangalore. A lot of big titles are still expected to come in, but I think it's only the public and the government support that will sort of take esports to the world. Everything else is sort of aligned.
Okay.
Anyone else
absolutely.
wants to contribute to that? We can.
Just to add on to Firas's point, I think we all spoke about our respective strengths and what we do. But I think we missed one very important point, what Zerah does. I think, cafes are a very intrinsic but under-recognized part of the ecosystem which help it grow. Just like you cannot play cricket without a cricket field. I mean, while we take it for granted that, you can play esports from the comfort of your home, that's not the ideal environment, let me tell you. You need the right sort of environment to be actually able to grow in this, just like you would for any other sport. And the reason why I continuously call out, the similarities between sports and esports is because it's a competitive skill-based gaming. There is no element of luck in esports. So it is just the same as any other sport, except that the playground is virtual. Nothing else sets it apart. And in that, the cafe ecosystem plays a very important role because that allows people who do not necessarily have the money to buy a high-end PC or a high-end phone to go and access that infrastructure at an hourly rate of, let's say, 20 bucks or 50 bucks or 100 bucks. And that's where it starts. For me, that's where it started way back in 2006 when, I wanted to game at a professional level. I was a competitive Counter-Strike player. I was a competitive Dota player. But to be able to access those resources, I had to go to a cafe because घर पे रहूँगा, कभी mom बोल रही है दरवाजा खोलो, कभी dad बोल रहे हैं phone उठाओ, कभी कुछ हो रहा है. That's not how you game. So I would definitely want to call out that as one very important aspect. And then second, of course, as Firas correctly mentioned, I think the government really needs to step in. It needs to, it has already distinguished, but I think the lines need to be drawn more clearly between real money gaming, between fantasy gaming, and between esports to help us build and nurture the esports ecosystem unidirectionally, helping us create a global footprint from India for the world.
2 points I like to make. One, taking forward what he suggested and emphasizing, I think we need to grab this opportunity to come up with a lot of Indian games. I do understand that we'll have to compete the international games on a global platforms, whether it is Asian Games or Olympics or all international platforms. But look at our huge potential of players available in India. And there is a huge scope for a lot of state and national level games and tournaments where huge sum of competition money can also be brought in. So I think we need to look at this opportunity and develop a lot of games that comes from India. I think that opportunity, it may be sounding far-sighting right now, but there is a huge opportunity, and unless we start today probably, we can't dream of becoming a good game developer market here. That's one. Point two, I think is we need to, being a esports player, as he said, we are purely a game of skill. There is no chance, no fantasy involved in this. And I think, unfortunately, in our country, in most of the sectors, we have been quite shortcut makers for the success. And that has always damaged our prospect at the global level. So learning from our other experiences in other sectors, we have a greater responsibility as the esports stakeholder to convey not only to the people at large, but even to the government that there is a difference between game of skills and the other fun games. And we have no problem people paying fun games. They have all their right. We have no problem gamers coming up with fun games and everything. There is a market for that. There is a space for that, and they have all right to do that. But there is the positivity of esports, and esports is a game played on a virtual platform. I think that is something which we need to work on for at least next few years to convince everybody in the stakeholder. Even the media, for example, you will find most of the conferences I go, they consider all online game in one definition, one platform. So I think that we need to continuously emphasize on if we want to push for our presence at the global level.
Absolutely.
I think I'm going to speak from a team ecosystem. I think like how cricket got, cricket became a spectator sport and it became mainstream after that. After winning the 83 World Cup, I think one Indian team needs that 83 moment for, esports to become more massy in the country, even though it is massy. But I think for it to actually be recognized as a spectator sport in India, I think one team just needs that 83 moment. And I think we'll be good to go. We'll see non-endemic brands entering the space. We'll have endemic brands still supporting us. So I think that's the only one thing that a team requires.
Sorry. Yeah, I would like to add one point. Like, so for esports players, teams, everyone is playing a game which is developed by other countries, right? But I have a personal wish. I want to make a esports tournament global level with Indian indigenous made games. Okay, so right now, if you take real cricket, is the only esports game right now in India which is doing fair. And right now, we have recently partnered with ISF, Asia Open International Esports Federation, and we are forcefully suggested real cricket to be a part of. So right now, PUBG Mobile, Dota, eFootball, and we added real cricket on top of that. Now, International Esports Federation has started to think about real cricket. You take Asian Games, Commonwealth, nothing Indian games. So going forward, the game which is developed by India has to represent Asia Games or Commonwealth, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Piyush, you wanted to add one
Just
other
to
thing.
add on to Shiva and Rohit's points, right? I think one of the most important things in terms of awareness and recognition is we need to ask ourselves how many of us know we won a bronze at the Commonwealth Games in esports. We won for a title called Dota, defeating New Zealand 2-0. How many of us know Rohit's team represented us at a global championship, which is the Pokemon Unite Worlds? And they deserve that recognition for having worked so hard and reached that level of success. We need to bring awareness around that as well, just as much as we need to bring awareness for esports in general.
Absolutely. And that, of course, my very amazing panel. From LXG, of course, I just wanted to add that when we talk about grassroots level gaming, our focus, our mission as a company has always been to target the players who don't have equipment, right? And that's why we have gaming arenas all across the country. We try to make sure that every gamer has a chance to try a PC, come play games, meet new friends. We've gone ahead and also for this year hosted the India LAN Gaming, which is going to be in 30 cities. It's going to have a lot of different young gamers come in for different titles. And that's where I think all your teams will be able to also find your new athletes, right? It's very important to also have a place where you can build the next set of athletes, because it's one thing to have great athletes, but like even Vaibhav mentioned, the fact that what happens after they are 25, 26? Who's going to be the next set of esport athletes that come to the market? And there's someone who needs to kind of make sense of that, give them the opportunity to at least try that out and think to themselves, okay, maybe I'm not into cricket so much. Maybe I like playing Counter-Strike more, you know. So that is an achievement that I would say as a company ourselves, it's our mission to kind of make sure that for the last 8 years, we've served gamers through gaming cafes. Now we kind of do it through esport tournaments in gaming cafes. And I really thank my panel today. I appreciate the time you all have taken out to come here and attend this panel. I would also like to thank India Gaming Show and CII for hosting this panel, and all of you today for also taking out the time to attend it. We're open for a quick Q&A for 5 minutes. I know we're already taken like 5 extra minutes of our time, but if anybody has any quick questions for the panel, yes, ma'am, in the front. Could you please give her a mic over there?
Audible?
Yeah.
So, hi, I'm Orithri from PwC. Now, one thing which I would like to ask, especially to Piyush and Mr. Vaibhav, one very important aspect of the ecosystem is the fan base. And how do we engage the fan base? Currently, the fan base in India might be a little unorganized. centered around some influencers. But what do you see? How do we engage them? How do we monetize them? What's your take on that? Thanks.
Do you want that to be answered?
By you and Piyush.
I can also take that up.
Sure. So in fact, that's definitely Firasat's area of expertise as well. But before I hand it over to him, just want to add, I think one of the most while engaging the fan base, we need to be conscious of the different types of content that we are creating. Because while a lot of us are content creators in some form or shape, we have to understand that entertaining content is one part of it. What about the skilling content? What about the training content? What about immersive content, most importantly? I mean, we're all doing classroom education, presentations, all that. What about 3D, XR, AR, VR? I mean, we have definitely in the last couple of months paid very special focus to that as Crowd Control Esports, where we are categorically trying to create content for Khelshala, which is our education and skilling wing, which is very immersive in nature, which leverages the modern technology of XR, AR, VR, and 3D to create not just classroom level education, but very immersive, content-based practical education. The way we flipped around the education system is we've made the content 80% practical and 20% theory. So that is, I think, one of the ways. I know your question is more from a video or content point of view, but even Khelshala, we are trying to make the learning more video-based, more immersive, and not just text-based.
Yeah, I wanted to, because we're trying to, do the same at Loco, day in and day out. On the supply of esports content, everything is pretty much sorted. I mean, we have tournament organizers all across the country, creating different kinds of content. We have players, publishers have shown up with various games. But the fan side of it is actually the biggest experiment, if you really ask me. Consider the difference of the kind of engagement and fan experiences you have seen evolving in cricket. In the 90s, you used to have a television broadcast with a picture-in-picture show of when they used to hit the ball and go for a run. I used to see a picture approach. One camera would follow the ball and the other would show the cricketers running between creases. That was the height of production. But then that didn't really grow the sport for us. How the sport grew actually is by creation of a next level fan experience by shoulder affiliations, right? BCCI gave rise to the phenomenon of IPL. IPL has created some unique fan experiences which we never thought were possible. Now, as I am in the stands or as a caller on TV, I can get online or on a hotline with a wicketkeeper and ask him how he's feeling about the match. And these are fan experiences that the television has kind of shown to us as to how they have created a difference for the experiences of fans. We never knew what a captain is thinking before. Now commentators just directly dial up the captain inside on the cricket field and ask him, what do you think? What's the strategy going to be for the next match? Now, we've learned all of this from the developed countries and their developed sports. But we see that there's been a clear focus on increasing fan experiences. And at the top of everything, the priority is always to try and bring the fan closest to the action as possible. If we are able to do that in a systematic manner, and if we are able to leverage technology, and if we are able to leverage community power in order to be able to do so, I think several of the most historic moments in the last few years that Indian esports have seen have almost all been fan-led. People have shown great compassion by being able to, touch a common person's lives. Esport players have shown up in support of their fans when, for example, if they've not seen a great time or if they have had complaints about something. So in a nutshell, we need to make sure that we create an environment where we bring the fan as close to the game as possible. Someone was mentioning China over here, and Rohit correctly pointed out that India hasn't yet seen its 83 moment in gaming and esports. And I mentioned China because the live streaming and esports and all of the economy around esports started growing from 2011. At its height, there were about 800 live streaming platforms in China, but then they all showed up once in 2010. The Chinese national League of Legends team won the LOL championship, and they all wanted to come back home. Everyone wanted to see their game. Nothing was available, and then platforms showed up, sponsors showed up, fans showed up to support them. Now, even that phenomenon was created as a demand from fans. So demand drives the supply in every case over here. And in a nutshell, what I wanted to say is it can be done by technology, and the focus of that has to be to bring the fan as close to the action of the game as possible. I think that should solve it.
I wanted to ask, how close are we to actually developing that awareness among basically just the general crowd that this is like, like any other sports, this is also a form of sports. You actually need mental concentration, you need focus, you need to be able to work as a team, right? So, how close are we to getting that awareness?
We're very far, but yeah.
Yeah, I think one, if you talk about the awareness, right? In the last 6 months, we've seen multiple events coming up dedicated to esports and gaming. So that plays a very, very important aspect. We've had, of course, the Indie Gaming Show, multiple others in the past couple of months. That is one aspect. The other aspect is we need to, I think, one of our panelists mentioned how important a role parents play in esports. They are a very important, as I said, like cafes are an unrecognized member of the ecosystem. Parents are just as an important, a very nascent member of the ecosystem who play a very categorical role, because without parent support, we really can't get anywhere, to be very honest. And in terms of raising awareness around them, we need to create programs, we need to create shows, we need to create content showcasing what is esports, one, how it is not addictive, and if done right, what are the different skills that we capture or generate through esports, what are the skills we can impart, and the impact that those skills have in real life. So, one of the things I often say to parents I meet was, when was the last time you used trigonometry in real life? I mean, you've been taught it for over 3 to 4 years, right? Very few of us have. Why not teach something relevant which can help you? So, in the day and age of AI, right, remembering, understanding, and applying are very common skill sets. What we need to understand, adapt, is evaluating, analyzing, and creating. Creation has to be the end goal of education, where we are creating new things. Now, if we set this awareness to the parents, if we set that, we're teaching a child creation, I am pretty sure no parent will have a problem with that. The underlying message is, we have to set the right message, set the right context, and make sure everyone understands that, to impart awareness. Where we are in that journey, I think, we're still early, I would say. All of us, not just all of us, in fact, everyone in the ecosystem, in the industry is definitely trying to make their mark in terms of awareness. We've done as Firas mentioned, we've done a program called Live Shots, which was around raising awareness for COVID vaccination amongst the youth. Right, this was during the third wave of the pandemic. So programs like that, programs which create an awareness about the positive impacts of esports, are what are quintessential to making it successful. I hope I've answered your question.
Absolutely. All right then. So that was our panel. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, thank you, gentlemen, yet again. Apologies for the delay. We did stretch another 15 minutes, but thank you so much and have a good day.